The General Hospital recap for Tuesday, July 1st reveals that Natalia Ramirez was proclaimed deceased. Marco Rios was also Cristina Corinthos Davis' hero, but Sonny Corinthos remained skeptical. Cristina attempted to use a fire extinguisher in Charlie's pub, but it proved ineffective because the flames were spreading too quickly. Marco was talking on the phone in his automobile when Lucas Jones yelled about something in the distance and abruptly disconnected. Marco noticed the fire and raced into the building to see if anyone was inside. Cristina told Marco where she was, so he grabbed a blanket from his car and covered them both as they exited the back door. Jen Sidwell watched the fire from the tower at Windmere and called to report that the work had been completed. Alexis Davis arrived shortly after and insisted on reviewing some legal documents relating to Sidwell's account, which Marco was managing. Sidwell complained about it being a waste of time, and that Alexis did not trust Marco because of his father. At the Quartermain estate, Sasha Gilmore Corbin looked concerned about leaving Daisy Gilmore alone in her crib, so she kept her in the living room as she napped in her bassinet. Jason Morgan alerted Sonny that Natalia had yet to show up for her flight to Belize. Sonny and Jason left after hearing about the Charlie's pub fire over the phone. Molly Lansing Davis arrived late and handed Michael Corinthos a gift before adoring the baby with Sasha. When Molly received a call about the 3-alarm fire at Charlie's pub, she panicked because Cristina was in danger. Cody Bell drove Molly and tried to calm her down on the way there. Molly informed Alexis of the flames, and Alexis became concerned about getting a boat back from Windmere because Cristina could be inside. Sidwell appeared concerned about Cristina's safety, and once alone, he shouted at someone on the phone about how the tavern was supposed to be empty. Jocelyn Jacks provided Lucas with updates on Natalia's appearance as a surprise baptism crasher earlier. Meanwhile, Harrison Chase took an officer inside Natalia's room, so Sonny's henchman, Paul, fled from outside her apartment. Chase caught a glimpse of Paul leaving and knocked on Natalia's door, but there was no answer. Anna Devane arrived and went inside with Chase, but Natalia was comatose on the sofa from all the medications and alcohol. Chase and Anna discussed the possibility that Natalia attempted suicide, or that the incident was staged. After Chase remembered seeing the guy outside Natalia's room, Anna wanted to search through security footage to find him. Natalia was transported to GH, where Elizabeth Baldwin and Isaiah Gannon's attempts to save her proved useless. When the hour of death arrived, Liz called Lucas in the hopes that he would be with Marco. Lucas arrived to the hospital following Natalia's death and was perplexed as to where Marco was, as he was meant to be traveling to Natalia's suite. Dante Falconeri spoke with Cristina and Marco outside Charlie's pub before paramedics arrived. When Jason and Sonny arrived, they immediately asked why Marco was there. Cristina hailed Marco for saving her, but Sonny and Marco remained suspicious. Marco did not want to go to the hospital, but Dante persuaded him. When Marco got at GH, he discovered Natalia had been hauled in and flipped out. Marco fled and burst into tears as he saw Natalia dead in a hospital bed. Molly was relieved to see Cristina in one piece outside Charlie's pub. Cristina barely got smoke inhalation and minor burns, so she told Molly she was fine. Alexis was reassured when she arrived, but she blew up at Sonny because this was clearly the work of one of his opponents. Alexis insisted that Sonny take action because she refused to bury another daughter. Cristina persuaded Alexis to accompany her to the hospital, so Molly consented and arranged for Cody to drive them. A firefighter eventually spoke with Dante to determine that the fire was arson, making this a crime scene. Back with Jocelyn, she was astonished to see Jack Brennan at Carly's house. Brennan spoke briefly with Jocelyn on WSB affairs, but she sensed he was expecting to run across Carly. Brennan stated unequivocally that his personal relationship had nothing to do with their employment arrangement. However, Jocelyn worried if the higher-ups were aware Brennan was dating the mother of one of his recruits. Carly strolled in during a difficult time, but Jocelyn played it down and made an excuse to leave. That allowed Carly to lean on Brennan concerning the fire she had heard about, which brought back many horrific Michael memories. At the Quartermain home, Michael learned that Cristina was fine and deserved a drink after all the tension. Michael was unable to consume alcohol because he had already taken a painkiller. Sasha had no idea Michael was still battling, but he insisted it was nothing compared to the agony he felt when he first started recovering. Michael couldn't take the notion of Cristina going through that. Michael also informed Sasha that, in many respects, he was unlike Sonny. Sasha received Michael's assurance that nothing similar to what happened today will happen to his own children. According to General Hospital spoilers, more danger is on the horizon in Port Charles, so stay tuned for all the highs and lows. Everything started unraveling in a matter of seconds, but Christina felt as if time had stopped altogether. The waiting room at General Hospital has never felt so claustrophobic, so quiet yet also so loud. The sterile hum of overhead lights, the distant sound of machinery, the shuffle of nurses' footsteps on the linoleum. It all blended into a hollow, unreal echo. Christina's hands trembled in her lap, her gaze locked on the double doors leading to the trauma unit. She had gone numb hours before, unable to cope with the rush of panic and bewilderment that had overtaken her. Natalia was found unconscious on the side of Route 6, her automobile crushed into a guardrail, the windshield cracked and her body motionless. Nobody knew what had happened, except that paramedics had rushed her to JIJ with sirens blaring and scant hope. Christina sat there, praying harder than she had ever prayed in her life, begging for a miracle that she thought was too late. She couldn't remember calling Marco. She must have, for at some point during the foggy commotion, he appeared breathless and wide-eyed, his arms quickly wrapping around her as she sobbed into his chest. He didn't ask her questions or press her for answers. He simply held her as if she might break apart otherwise, and perhaps she would have. Marco's presence was like oxygen to her at that point. Everything else was confusion and anguish, but he was strong, warm, and genuine. He was something to cling to while the world burned around her. They waited together for hours on end, nurses passing by with sympathetic expressions but no developments. Christina's body jerked upright each time a doctor in scrubs emerged from those doors, her heart pounding on her ribs. But they always passed her by. Finally, a familiar face, Dr. Portia Robinson, stepped toward them, her eyes somber and her hands folded tightly. Christina knew as soon as their eyes connected. "No," she muttered before Portia could open her voice. "No, please no." "I'm very sorry, Christina," Portia murmured gently. "We did all we could. However, the trauma was too great. Natalia did not make it." It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. Christina's body stiffened, her breath seized in her throat, and the world shook violently off its axis. She heard Marco say her name once or twice, but couldn't answer. She could not breathe. Natalia. Gone. Her mother. Gone. There were no words large enough to express the loss. There's no way to absorb it all in one blow. She felt herself sliding into the grief, as if it were a black hole consuming her whole. Marco caught her before she could fall to the floor, gently taking her into his arms as she wailed out, her voice harsh and broken. She was sobbing with pain she hadn't realized she was capable of feeling. Marco did not attempt to hush her. He simply held her, saying her name, grounding her with his touch and presence. She clutched to him, unsure of how to live without her mother, or how to get back up after such sorrow. Natalia was a complex lady, stubborn, proud, and flawed in the most human of ways. But she had also loved fiercely, even possessively. She had battled for Christina throughout their relationship, even when they disagreed and were distant. Things had been going well lately. They discovered common ground again. There were late-night phone calls, coffee dates that ended in laughing, texts with photos of Natalia's most recent additions, and comments about Christina's baby. She was quite excited to meet the baby. Natalia would never again hold that baby. She would never sit in the delivery room or give Christina a glass of water while lecturing her on hydration. She'd never see Christina become a mother. Christina couldn't imagine how she would fill the void created by the sudden destruction of her future. Marco stayed with her all night, refusing to leave even though visiting hours had expired. He had a way of making room for her pain without stifling her, and he offered his strength without making her feel vulnerable. He understood when to speak and when to simply hold her. He didn't make promises he couldn't fulfill. He didn't tell her everything would be fine, because they both knew it wouldn't be, not for a long time. When the morning rose above Port Charles, sending a dull orange light across the hospital's empty corridors, Christina drew away from him just long enough to wipe her face and murmur, "I don't know what to do." Marco did not haste to respond. He gently held her face in his hands and murmured, "Then let's figure it out together." That was enough to see her through the following instant. The funeral passed too quickly, a swirl of black garments, floral arrangements, and faces she did not want to see. Christina felt divorced from everything, as if she was observing from outside her own body. There were speeches, condolences, and an overwhelming number of people offering apologies and platitudes. She did not want any of it. She did not want compassion. She longed to see her mother again. Dante stood in the back of the chapel, hands folded and eyes mournful. Even Sonny showed up, but he kept his distance. He and Natalia had been at odds for years, but grief has a way of temporarily soothing resentments. He gave Christina a small nod before leaving, a subtle expression of camaraderie. Marco stood close by, never letting her move more than a few steps without checking in with a gaze or a touch. He was her anchor, her constant, and she wasn't sure how she would have gotten through the funeral without him. In the days that followed, Christina went through the motions, gathering up Natalia's belongings, signing documents, and dealing with situations that made her feel like an imposter in her own life. She was not prepared to be the one making these judgments, but she needed to be. Her mother had left, and now it was up to her. Marco was there for every phone call and piece of documentation. He prepared for her even when she didn't eat. He sat with her in quiet when she couldn't speak. When she couldn't sleep, he told her stories about his boyhood, his mother, and his expectations for the baby. Christina would cry till her chest hurt late at night, when the house was silent and the sadness was at its most intense, and Marco would hold her through every tear, gulp, and shudder. "You don't have to be strong," he told her once, his voice full with emotion. "You just have to keep breathing." It became their mantra. Keep breathing. One breath at a time. 1 hour at a time. The world gradually settled into a new type of fractured normal. Christina returned to the pregnancy center gradually, easing back into work. She took solace in assisting others, knowing that her sadness had not taken away her purpose. The baby kicked more frequently now, a reminder that life would continue regardless of whether she was ready. Marco was present for it all. When she experienced a panic attack in the middle of the night, Marco got her a cool cloth and muttered soothing words to help her calm down. When she awoke from her nightmares about the accident, she did so in Marco's arms. He became more than just her support system. He became her safe haven. They hadn't truly identified themselves. There had been months of attraction, braided through shared causes and shy glances. But in the aftermath of Natalia's death, something deeper had emerged. They relied on one another not only for consolation, but also for hope. They found strength in their mutual weakness. And somewhere between the anguish, love blossomed, modest and timid but undeniable. Christina was unsure if she would ever be the same. Her mother's death had altered her, revealing new aspects of herself. But Marco had helped her collect the fragments one by one. He never attempted to fix her. He simply came up over and over again until she understood she wasn't broken beyond repair. Christina stood at the park's edge near the lake, her palm resting on her developing tummy and the wind flowing gently over her hair. Weeks after the funeral, Marco stood alongside her, fingers loosely clasped. "She would have loved this view," Christina whispered gently. Marco stared out to the horizon and then back at her. "She'd be proud of you." Christina gulped hard. "I wish I'd told her more. I loved her. That I've forgiven her for everything." "She knew," Marco explained. "She noticed how you gazed at her. The way you spoke about the baby. She knew." They stood silently for a long time, watching the river ripple beneath the setting sun. Christina rested her head on Marco's shoulder, and for the first time in what seemed like forever, she didn't feel alone. Natalia's death had broken her world, but Marco had helped her rebuild it, not the same as before but stronger in new ways. A path that could see her through parenthood, bereavement, and whatever came next. She had not asked for a hero. However, heroes do not often wear capes or make great gestures. Instead, they have calm hands, steadfast hearts, and the strength to remain alongside you when all else fails. Marco was her hero, and one breath at a time she was learning to live again. The General Hospital spoilers for Wednesday, July 2nd, suggest that there will be a security footage report, and Jocelyn Jacks unleashes her rage on Sonny Corinthos. Tracy Quartermain will also prove to be the ultimate schemer, so there will be a lot going on in Port Charles. Let's start with Giovanni Gio Palmieri, who will employ Emma Scorpio Drake as a confidant. Gio may discuss his mixed sentiments about his family, including Sonny, now that all this deadly drama has erupted. Christina Corinthos Davis survived the fire at Charlie's pub thanks to Marco Rios, but Sonny believes Marco's role as the hero was a little too convenient. Sonny plainly believes Marco knows more than he is letting on about Jen Sidwell's activities, therefore he will not mind if Marco is caught in the crossfire of what is ahead. While Sonny plots retribution with Jason Morgan's support, Tracy will also plot across town. Tracy will learn her concerns about Sonny becoming a deception investor are justified after Brooklyn Quartermain informs her that Sonny's second investment was accidentally dirty. Tracy would generally like being correct, but that will not be the case this time because the news could be bad for deception. Tracy may devise a strategy to hide her error, but it appears like she will be involved in more Drew Kane plots in the future. Jocelyn will then accompany Vaughn to the crime scene after receiving an update on Christina's close encounter at Charlie's pub. Fans of General Hospital will witness Jocelyn express her wrath at Sonny and portray him as a living plague of impending devastation. At GH, Anna Devane will receive information from Metro Court Security, so there may be video footage of who was outside Natalia Ramirez's before her overdose. Because that was one of Sonny's men, Anna and Harrison Chase may be wondering if he ordered the setup. The theory may evolve into Sonny arranging for Natalia to appear to have committed suicide. That might also become Marco's theory, as he refuses to accept it is as easy as Natalia wishing to die. Natalia was all prepared to start a new life in Belize, so Marco may believe Sonny stole her of that opportunity and ended her life instead. Of course, this is a tricky scenario because Natalia consumed the alcohol and drugs on her own, but she did so because she felt abandoned by Sonny. It was Natalia's fault for believing Sonny wanted to go away with her, but it's unfortunate that it had to end this way. Lucas Jones will eventually sound the alarm, and he may be concerned that Marco may end up in the core of Sonny and Sidwell's escalating hatred. General Hospital spoilers indicate that Sidwell and Sonny are preparing for a developing feud, so stay tuned. The security footage altered everything. Jocelyn Jacks hadn't been looking for anything, and she hadn't really suspected anything, but when it dropped in her lap, thanks to a concerned but anonymous tip, it was impossible to ignore. It was the type of footage that not only confirmed concerns, but also blasted them wide open. And when she saw it, she felt completely paralyzed. The quiet wrath that had been simmering beneath the surface erupted into a raging flame. Jocelyn had always prided herself on being intuitive, able to recognize when something didn't add up. And lately, too many things around her didn't add up. People were being cagey. Conversations came to a halt when she entered rooms. Her inquiries about specific financial issues affecting the family's accounts were ignored, delayed, or deflected. When she inquired about Metro Court-related events, even her own mother provided hazy answers. But none of that prepared her for the stark, unmistakable reality captured on tape. The video showed Tracy Quartermain, clothed in a fitted coat, entering one of the private salons with a man Jocelyn did not recognize. Several minutes later, Ned emerged. The talk was quiet, but the body language shouted betrayal. At first, Jocelyn assumed it was a business transaction, possibly some boardroom double-crossing. But then she witnessed something else. An envelope was passed, hands shook in agreement, and Tracy slipped out a back exit with a look of delight that made Jocelyn's stomach flip. She viewed the video 3 times, each time adding additional layers of wrath. Everyone knew Tracy was crafty. The Quartermain matriarch's reputation was built on scheming. But this was different. This was not a business ploy or petty sabotage. This was a deliberate, covert manipulation that seemed to link everything that had recently gone wrong. And suddenly the parts began to click into place. Jocelyn remembered how ELQ's quarterly reports had been tampered with, and how Brooklyn had abruptly pulled out of a contract that would have benefited her own family. She remembered how her mother, Carly, had recently voiced anxiety about the hotel's finances, despite the fact that occupancy remained high. And she remembered Willow looking nervous the previous time they had lunch, dismissing a question about the Quartermain's sudden infusion of wealth with a vague, "Things are complicated." Jocelyn became increasingly convinced that Tracy was responsible for everything. She was not only making strategic decisions, she was also pulling strings, tearing apart connections, building alliances in the shadows, and securing her power base while everyone else floundered. Jocelyn had had enough. She stormed into Carly's office, pulling the footage up on her iPad and slamming it down on the desk. Carly blinked, taken aback by her daughter's rage. "Watch this," Jocelyn warned, her voice shaking with control. "Just watch." Carly obeyed. She watched the footage in quiet, her expression steadily shifting from interest to wrath. When the video concluded, she gazed up at her daughter with a mixed expression of pride and concern. "Where did you get this?" Carly asked, her voice low. "It doesn't matter," Jocelyn said abruptly. "What matters is that Tracy is screwing us over, and no one's doing anything about it." Carly massaged her temples. "We've always known she was dangerous. But this is bold even for her." "She's not just scheming," Jocelyn asserted. "She is manipulating everything behind the scenes. ELQ. The Metropolitan Court. Probably even Sunny." Carly's eyes narrowed. "Do you think she's going after Sunny?" "I don't know yet," Jocelyn acknowledged. "But if she is, I swear to God, I'll bury her." The wrath did not subside. It only expanded. Jocelyn had always attempted to avoid the worst of Port Charles's filthy games, but this one felt personal. Tracy wasn't simply playing chess with companies. She was also messing with people Jocelyn cared about. And when Jocelyn got angry, she didn't keep silent. She became loud. The next day, she arrived at the Quartermain estate unannounced. Michael and Brooklyn were sitting in the parlor mid-conversation. Brooklyn's eyes widened as she noticed Jocelyn, and Michael stood abruptly. "Joss?" he asked. "What is going on?" Jocelyn did not respond to him immediately. She turned to Brooklyn. "Where is Tracy?" Brooklyn's face became pallid. "Why is she?" "I'm not asking again," Jocelyn replied. "Where is she?" Brooklyn had little time to answer when Tracy stepped in, holding an iced beverage and seemingly unconcerned. "Well, if it isn't Carly's Spitfire daughter," she replied, smirking. "For what do we owe this pleasure?" Jocelyn walked over to her, invading her space. "I witnessed what you did. The meeting. The envelope. The backdoor deal. You believe you can manipulate this town indefinitely?" Tracy blinked, amused. "You'll need to be more specific, dear." "I do a lot of stuff." Michael stepped between them. "What are you talking about, Josh?" She handed him the phone. "Watch it. Then tell me if I am overreacting," Michael observed. His expression grew darker with each passing second. Brooklyn's hand shot to her mouth. No, this cannot be." Tracy did not even attempt to dispute it. "Do you honestly believe that this community thrives on honesty and goodwill?" she asked. "I completed the necessary tasks. Sometimes you have to make difficult decisions to ensure stability. Something none of you idealists get." "Stability for whom?" Jocelyn snapped. "What's your bank account? Your ego?" Tracy's smile vanished. "For the Quartermain legacy. For this family." "No," Michael responded as he stepped beside Jocelyn. "You did it for power. You do not care about this family. You value control." Jocelyn leaned forwards. "You made a mistake, Tracy, because now I understand what you are capable of. And I won't stop until everyone else knows." The fallout began immediately. Michael scheduled a board meeting. Tracy was questioned about every decision she had made in the last 2 months. Brooklyn was forced to confront her grandmother's lie, and the role she had unintentionally played in keeping things hidden. Ned felt betrayed again. He had finally begun to reestablish confidence in his family following the Eddie Main catastrophe, but now he had to cope with Tracy's exploitation of him as a pawn. Meanwhile, Carly conducted her own quiet investigation. She investigated the financial consequences of Tracy's transaction, revealing anomalies that, if revealed, may destroy reputations. And Jocelyn? She made it her job to reveal the rot. She collaborated with Michael to create a formal statement informing the ELQ Board of secret dealings. She discussed with Diane about the legal ramifications of fraud and ethics issues. The media caught on. Rumors circulated about internal tension at ELQ, with Carly Corinthos and her daughter reportedly on a silent warpath. Tracy, for her part, kept a serene demeanor. She attended every family function, sipped her martinis, and pretended nothing had changed. But behind closed doors she was scrambling. The footage had done more than reveal a deal. It had made her a pariah in her own family. Brooke Lynn could not even look at her. "You made me defend you," she muttered following a hard confrontation. "I lied to people I love because I believed in you." Tracy attempted to spin it. "I did everything for us. For you. For this family." Brooke Lynn shook her head. "You keep repeating that. But the truth is all you care about is winning. And you don't care who is injured in the process." Tracy attempted to reach out, but Brooke Lynn drew away. Monica, who had endured Tracy's shenanigans for decades, finally broke. "I let you back into this house because I assumed age had softened you. I was mistaken. You are still the same woman who only knows how to destroy." Tracy retreated. She did not apologize. She never did. However, for the first time she found herself alone. Not to be feared. Not respected. Just tolerated. And Jocelyn? She did not gloat. She did not need to. Because she knew it wasn't the end. Port Charles was based on lies and cover-ups, yet the truth occasionally shone through. And when it did, it altered everything. Jocelyn had stepped into the flames and refused to back down. She had exposed one of the town's most brutal power players, not for vengeance but for justice. And as she stood outside the Courtemain gates, the wind blowing her hair, she said to herself, "This is just the beginning." According to General Hospital spoilers, fans are wondering why Sonny Corinthos isn't protecting his family from all of the enemy threats. The mob boss has continually failed to deliver in recent months. Therefore something must change. First, Michael Corinthos was caught in the explosion at Sonny's penthouse and sustained severe burns. That hit was intended for Sonny, yet he still let Michael land in harm's way. Michael could have faced a harsh ending. And this isn't the first time he's been caught up in mob violence. Christina Corinthos Davis is certainly a target now that Charlie's pub has been set on fire, most likely as a result of Sonny's dispute with Jen Sidwell. Some GH viewers have taken to social media to express their dissatisfaction with Sonny's inability to protect those he loves. You'd think that with the recent threats on Sonny's life and his decision to reject Sidwell's offer, he'd have some extra precautions in place. Instead, Christina had to face the flames and watch the bar Sonny had given her go up in smoke. Sonny should have done more to keep Christina and his other children safe, but he has clearly lost control of the situation. Will Sonny be able to recover control, or will things worsen before they improve? Sidwell has been looking at CCTV images of Sonny's other loved ones, which puts them at risk as well. Sonny will plot vengeance in the future episodes, which could exacerbate his battle with Sidwell and lead to further attacks on his family. Sonny will undoubtedly beef up his protection, but it may not be enough. Sonny must strive harder to keep his children and grandchildren safe from threats like Sidwell and anyone else who may wish to harm them. It's time to pull out all the stops to beat Sidwell and restore peace to Port Charles. General Hospital spoilers predict Sonny will fight back against all the unpleasant news that strikes, so stay tuned for updates on his changing intentions. Sonny Corinthos was once a man who instilled terror and respect. In the realm of General Hospital, his name carried considerably more weight than the Corinthos coffee empire or the underworld of Port Charles. He was a protector, a provider, and a guy willing to burn down the world to keep his family safe. But now viewers are asking the issue that has been hanging in every aspect of the show. What happened to Sonny's edge? Why is the once feared mob boss always a step behind, unable to anticipate dangers and consistently failing to protect those he claims to love the most? Sonny's power hasn't vanished altogether. He's still capable, feared in some circles, and the man people talk about when crisis arises. But something has shifted. Whether it's due to age, trauma, conflicting loyalties, or emotional instability, Sonny no longer governs his surroundings with the same precision and control as before. And the effects are beginning to be terrible.